I've got a goal and I need your help. The goal is to make this podcast reach every corner of the earth. But the only way that I can do that is if you hit that subscribe button. And in exchange, I'll make you a promise. I promise you that the production will get better and we will go far and long to get many more amazing guests and to keep on bringing you exciting and insightful episodes. And listen, I'm proud and appreciative of every single individual that supports the podcast. You're a part of the ERP family. Therefore, hit that subscribe button and let's get on with the video. Cool. So where's most of your rent-to-rents?
Most of my rent-to-rents are in between London and West Midlands.
Okay.
And then my third biggest patch of stock would be in West Yorkshire. Yeah.
And are those like big blocks or are they just
No,
kind
all
of like
single
houses?
units. All single units within like a block.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some blocks like of maybe like 4 to 5 units have like half of the block. That are just like my units, and some of them are like service accommodation, some of them are social housing, so a mixed batch of stuff.
Which one do you prefer, social housing or SA? Oh, sorry. Obviously, you've got HMOs, right?
Yeah.
Which you can then go to the housing associations. Do you prefer that or just a standard Airbnb type rent-to-rent?
Social housing is the closest thing to passive income.
Yes.
It's the closest thing to passive income. Like one of the first properties I ever got was in Birmingham, and I went there twice in the two and a half year period I had it. I was to pick up the keys from the landlord and to give the key to their social housing provider, and then everything in between was just absolutely passive.
Yeah.
So that's what I do like. But then the income from social housing, where you're not perhaps direct to the provider or you're just sort of lease by leasing, is what I call it. It's like this marginal income. Whereas obviously service accommodation is like, it's exponential. It's uncapped income.
Yeah.
It's not like, for instance, like I've got a couple of properties in Wembley. AJ's fighting next week or week after.
21st, I think he's fighting.
Yeah, so next week Saturday.
Next week Saturday.
Next week Saturday. Like seeing it from my normal daily rate on my 2-bed is like £200 a night. But because he's fighting, people are paying 500, 550.
A night?
Yeah.
Wow.
Or like Oasis.
Okay.
Like I'm getting booked like £600 a night for Oasis. So it's uncapped earnings.
Wow, people are paying that.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Well, I guess, yeah, they're going to be coming
Yeah.
to... They want somewhere to stay, right?
Yeah, of course. And I'm literally like, you can see like the Wembley arches from my one of the bedrooms.
How do you feel increasing your prices though?
I don't really feel a type of way. It's supply and demand, right?
Yeah.
You know, like if there's enough demand for something and there's not a lot of supply, people are willing to pay more. It's the same reason why like people will pay a bit more on Amazon for something next day as opposed to waiting a couple of days on eBay or somewhere else online. So I don't really feel like, same thing with Brighton. I've got a property in Brighton as well, like Pride Month. That's like a big month.
Yeah.
You know, literally like 1 week before either end of that festival or activity, you know, the rates are like literally 75% less.
Yeah.
You know, 100% less.
And with your housing association, for those, what is a housing association?
So a housing association is a group or a non-charitable business or organization that provide accommodation for often vulnerable individuals. So this could be single mum parents or single parents child. This could be domestic abuse. This could be drug sort of ridden people, and they provide support in providing them accommodation. And they work with individuals like myself who have the accommodation, and then we then obviously work an agreement between us.
Yeah.
But then equally, I also work with like councils as well, which are obviously slightly separate from housing associations. And I sometimes also work with the service provider directly as well.
I've been told that if you want to get into that aspect, like it's really good to build those relationships with the councils. 100%.
But like obviously the council, like it's council,
Yeah,
so
it's
like
council,
it's
right.
slow. You're speaking to different people. Like it's again like it's because of the council. Like there's not a lot of priorities or like a lot of drive or enthusiasm as you would like working with like private individuals. Like when I'm working with like an insurance company, that need to like accommodate like one of their clients, for instance, one of their properties.
And then how do you negotiate with like the councils in terms of the rent that they're going to be giving you? Because obviously, you know, if you're renting out a normal HMO, you could be renting each room for £500. But obviously, if you go to the council or a housing association, you can get more. How do you kind of distinguish how you're going to get a higher price to profit you in it?
Yeah, no, of course. I tend to work backwards.
Okay.
So I find out the requirements first. Because no point me having a property and I don't know the rates and I don't know the cost of what it's going to cost me to run. So I often work backwards. So where I can often find properties, like say if it's in London or if it's in Birmingham or in Coventry, I then reach out to local housing associations or councils. I say, what are you looking for? What can you move quickly on? If I was to find you something now, what would that be? And what would be that cost? And they say, Freeman, we are in absolute urgency need of a 4-bed property in CV1, city centre, Coventry. Cool, boom. Go find something.
Yeah.
What's your absolute ceiling that you pay me for it? I'll pay you £3,000 for it. Brilliant. So I know I need to find something in the £2,000 mark, and I make my margins.
Yeah.
So that's how often I'd work.
Yeah, makes sense. Do you think in property you have to work backwards a lot of the time?
Yes. I used to think, like, for instance, like when you're looking at deal selling, I always used to think if you had a good deal, you know, the investors would come. But I feel like right now, where there's like a lot of people sort of coming in, especially when it comes to deal sourcing, a lot of investors aren't willing to sort of, like, lack of better words, throw the money as they probably once were. So like they're a lot more careful, because obviously a lot more, like, you know, people who aren't doing a lot of due diligence. So I find it's better to work backwards, find my investor, capture their requirements of what they're after, and then I'll then procure them the investment opportunity.
Okay.
So like I do find like it's a lot better to perhaps work backwards.
Yeah.
Sometimes even work from either ends and kind of meeting in the middle.
Yeah, no, I agree. I would literally do the same thing. Obviously, like I mentioned, we do deal selling now.
Yes.
Strictly buy, refurbish, refinance. It was going to be, we were going to source rent to rents and buy, refurbish, refinance, but me and my business partner's goal is to eventually get into buy, refurbish, refinance. So we just thought, let's do that instead. So how we would work is obviously, you know the process. You have a form, they fill it out. We jump on a discovery call. So say you're an investor, you fill out the form, we will then jump on a call and talk about your requirements, location, budget, what you're actually looking for, and literally what you described in terms of how you deal with the housing association. We would do the same thing.
Yeah.
And then we would go out and find the properties. But we're having a challenge at the moment in the sense that, do we mass produce in terms of deal selling? So just get a bunch of investors and then just view properties not specifically bespoke to the investors, or work with a few individuals and go from there. Like, what would you do?
So I used to do the initial, but now I work on the latter, because I used to just get as much investors as I can and then just sort of like scurry out and just go far afield. And it's like you're casting your net afar, and you're limiting the amount of pots and the resources that you work on. So now what I literally work is literally a handful of bespoke investors at a time. So for instance, like I've got a couple of clients right now, I'm working on, you know, finding them a rent in Manchester. They pay fees in advance, so I can see at least a bit of commitment from themselves. And obviously we're a lot more incentivized, you know, once we've got, you know, funds and bank to move forward and procure a deal. So at least that way they know that they're getting our undivided attention exclusively in working them deal. And to kind of sort of make it, you know, a bit more attractive and worthwhile, we'll put like time restraints. So we say like, we'll find you a deal within 1 week, for instance. So, and we're confident. But for us to be able to do that, we take all the requirements, you know, the budget, furniture, location, parking, bathrooms, all of the above. And we make sure that it fits all the requirements, and we're only sending them things that work. So now there's no excuses.
Yeah.
Because saying if you were to have a conversation with a client, say, yeah, I'm looking for something in Manchester. He's like, okay, cool, I'll add you to my list. And he now finds something in Manchester and he says, oh, I want a 3-bed, but you found him a 2-bed. I want no parking, but you found him something. Oh, I want parking, but you found him something with no parking. So et cetera, et cetera. I want a flat, but you wanted a house.
Yeah.
So like you found him a house, sorry. So like it's, when you're working one-to-one, you can quickly box that off and then on to the next. And if you actually sort of do the numbers on it, you probably find that you'd make a lot more money working bespoke with, you know, a few investors at one time, maybe like 3 to 5 investors at one time, than you would maybe having like a large, you know, like you're working with 30 investors and you haven't necessarily captured requirements. And obviously time changes as well.
Yeah.
So if you spoke to me about a month ago and we haven't really maintained contact other than I told you I'm looking for zone 1 deals in central London as a rent to rent. And then 4 weeks later you say, Freeman, I found you. Oh, sorry, I went to so-and-so and you found me a deal. So now it's just a wasted opportunity type thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Because we're in, what was I going to say? On the element of the mass producing on our deal selling side, do you not feel that there's a restriction in terms of, because obviously we both know that buy, refurbish, refinance can take quite a while, right?
Yeah, of course.
So once that investor has used up all their money, you've got to wait at least 3 months to a year or whatever that case is for them to now be able to buy another deal off you.
Yeah.
So now you say you've only got 10 investors and you've sourced to all of them. It's kind of like, ooh, all right, where am I going to make my money from now? because you've sold a deal, charged a finder's fee.
Yeah.
They're not going to be coming back to you because their money's gone.
Yep.
And I think that's a doubt and issue that we're thinking about, because usually people would say do rent to rent as like your cash flow, and
Yes.
then deal selling as you're controlling your pot,
Yes.
whatever you want to invest in. So I have a feeling that we're going to work backwards in the sense that when we get to that point, we're then going to start thinking, oh shit, we've actually got no cash flow. So let's jump back to rent to rent.
I see. There's a few ways to look at it. Well, firstly, you'd be surprised. Like, I have clients who've come back and bought multiple times.
Okay.
If you found them a good deal that makes money, in the next 3 to 6 months, why would they not invest with you again? The process was seamless. You know, it was fluid. You captured the requirements and you got them a deal that made money, right? And especially, like, let's focus on the topic of like BRRs right now. Saying if you find them an all money out deal, right? That's, you know, they've got all their money back and, you know, or they've got a bit of money left, you know, a couple grand left in the deal. Why in the next 3 to 6 months they can't go in again?
Yeah.
You know? So I would think of it with the mentalities that, you know, like, sourcing isn't like a one-off. Like, I think a lot of sources think it's like a very slap bang, and that's what's really given that sort of specific part of the industry like a very bad rep, because it's very like slap bang. I've got my money, I've got my sourcing fee, toodles. You know what I mean? But maintain that relationship. Like, I will often meet with my clients, go with them for dinner afterwards, go to the unit, see how it's performing, you know, and then refer them to other businesses as well. So saying if, you know, I was to sell like a BRR deal, or refer them to my social housing provider, or give them the option of a rent to rent. A company that can run it as a company let on a rent to rent basis and giving them a guaranteed income. So that's how I sort of monopolize on that. But then obviously, like, you have flows. Like, for instance, once you mentioned like it's you and your business partner, right? So I'm sure obviously you guys will have different responsibilities. So maybe if one person is focusing on the procurement of properties and one person is focused on the acquisition of clients.
Yes.
So then maybe you have like a time lag. So in an instance, so maybe if you found three clients, they've paid you fees, your business partner can now start finding 3 new properties. They found maybe 2 of them, cool, boom. Likely we're going to facilitate this deal and we're going to close on this deal. You now need to find another 2 clients. So then you now have this repeated circle, and that kind of acts as like your cash flow in a way, if we're sort of explicitly working on deal sourcing. However, the beauty of rent to rent is obviously like it's faster cash. You can get set up a lot quicker. You can start making your money a lot quicker, and you can get a return on your investment a lot quicker. So there's a way you can balance the both. What I'd probably say to a lot of people is like, if you are to focus on rent to rent, you can quite easily focus on deal sourcing. I think it'll be a struggle to go from deal sourcing to then service accommodation, because that's an explicit different business model. You know, if you're doing service accommodation, you're probably like 3/4 of the way from deal sourcing. It's not just finding an investor to buy the opportunity for you, right? Because when you're doing an Airbnb or when you're doing service accommodation, you know, firstly you're doing your due diligence, making sure it makes money, making sure it stacks, making sure it's permissible for you to actually run it as that business. So already 3/4 of the way there. And maybe for whatever reason you have the capacity or the resources to take it on. I now need to simply find an individual that has the pot and the interest to take this on, or find someone that knows someone, and that's called co-sourcing. Right? So I would often sometimes focus on service accommodation, right? Because if you're going to work on deal sourcing, you don't know the day-to-day operations and management and how to find a cleaner, how to market your property, how to make sure you operate smoothly and you don't go at a loss during the winter season, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So you wouldn't necessarily know that, or that's a whole another learning, and that can potentially stunt your growth. You know, that's why I often say, you know, start with service accommodation. Although it's a lot harder, but if you can do service accommodation, you can do deal sourcing.
There's a lot more moving parts to rent to rent.
Yeah, there is.
Okay, interesting. I did like the idea of once you've facilitated 2 investors, just keep cycling it, find 2 new ones. Okay, all right. We'll backtrack a bit. So let's go to 16-year-old Freeman. How old are you, if you don't mind me asking?
I'm 24.
Okay, so not long ago.
Yeah.
Who was 16-year-old Freeman? What was he doing? Where was he heading? What was his ambitions? Was he on track to going where he wanted to go?
Yeah. 16-year-old Freeman was reckless, was working hard and not smart, no goals, had drive and had ambition, but it was just, you know, a fast car with no steering wheel, you know? And I think that's probably like the best way to describe myself. And I just wanted to make money. Didn't know how I wanted to make money. So like at any one point, like any of my friends will tell you at 16 point, I was working 4 jobs
Oh wow.
at any given
Okay.
time. At any given time. You know, I was working at KFC, I was working at a phone shop that my uncle was running, I was doing Deliveroo, and I was working like some telecom sales. And I was obviously in college at the time as well.
Yeah.
So at any given time I was working. And again, just doing stupid things with the money, like just not being smart. And then I thought like, yeah, I'm gonna, buy my house when I turn 8, 19. I was gonna be driving this, gonna be like, again, just like with no goals. So I was really, really reckless in that regard and didn't really have a lot of focus, and then again, as we mentioned earlier, was spreading myself very thin, putting, my eggs in loads of baskets, so it just wasn't really going anywhere.
And did you go to college, uni?
I went to college, didn't go to uni.
Okay. And then after college, what did you do?
I did an apprenticeship.
Oh, wicked. That's what I did.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, really good. Really, really good. Like if you're not like, I don't know, it's my own personal opinion, but if you're not going into like sort of like an academic profession, like you want to be a lawyer or a doctor, I think I was going to do business management in uni. That's what I was going to do. I was thinking like, what specific profession necessarily requires me to do business management?
Yeah.
And I kind of did the maths. Like if I went to uni, did 3 years, probably would have gotten to things I didn't necessarily want to do. And I would probably just been faffing about loads. And I just wanted to make money. And I reckoned that employers would value my 3 years working in industry as opposed to like my 3 years theoretical knowledge with no experience.
Yeah, definitely.
So that's why I kind of took that.
Yeah, no, I agree. Because I did, so mine, I was actually beneficial. I did a degree apprenticeship.
Oh, that's really good.
So for those that don't know, basically a company will pay you to do a degree. But basically they give you a salary and they pay for your uni fees, accommodation, everything.
Yeah.
And mine was in IT.
That's nice.
To be fair, it's quite funny because I'm not actually in that anymore. I'm in sales now. So,
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter. Besides the point. When did your the mindset shift for you? At what point did you know, okay, enough's enough. I need to really start getting some goals down, figuring out what I want to do?
I think when I was about 21. I think when I was 21, because obviously, like, you're 18, like you're doing what normal 18 years old when, and I think it was right 21 I really sort of started to buckle down. But I feel like I've always I've grown up quite quickly because even when I went 18, like 95% of my friends went to university, so I was just by myself. You know what I mean? So it just forced me to sort of think out the box and do things. But again, I was always working, even when I was working in the city. So I did an apprenticeship in finance, for project management. And even when I was working in the city on the weekends, I was still doing a weekend job.
Yeah.
But again, it's just like I wasn't understanding that it's not just about money and what I'm doing my money. Like I didn't understand, like, okay, cool, I need to learn a high value skill that someone will actually remunerate me for. So then I thought about doing other things like, working in, like becoming like a financial advisor and etc. I thought about loads of those things, like, that's not something I necessarily want to do. And I thought about working myself up the project management route, but I was like, just this whole job thing.
Yeah.
So then did some qualifications so I could, increase my salary and etc. in project management. And then after that, I then pivoted into TV and I started working in TV for a TV distribution company who basically creates TV programs, Gogglebox, Gordon Ramsay, Great British Bake Off, all that lovely stuff. And they sell the rights for it. And I was working in the marketing operations team on the like sort of systems, like systems exec and project management stuff. And that was really cool. And I thoroughly enjoyed that. And I think just before I started that, I started my property management business and I really understood, okay, cool, like people are actually going to pay for my high school knowledge and information that I have in property. And then from there, slowly as the business started to grow, I then slowly exited that.
Okay.
And then started obviously working for myself full time, a couple of years later after something like that.
Props to you, man. That's the goal, right?
Yeah.
To escape the rat race.
Yeah, it's scary. It's scary, but it's worthwhile.
Yeah, good stuff. Let's go back to rent to rent.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of moving parts within that, as you mentioned. What would you say is the biggest moving part that people aren't necessarily aware of or don't factor in when they're doing a rent to rent?
I'll answer that in a twofold way. I think the first part is the transition of it from becoming a side hustle into a business. And I feel like a lot of people are still stuck in that sort of side hustle stance.
Yep.
Like I've got 3 to 4 properties now. I'm making about, $2,000 or whatever, or depending on where you are, £1,000, $2,000, and it's okay now. Your system's a bit scatty. Everything's been run on WhatsApp. You have no SOP, standard operating procedures. You're doing everything yourself. If a guest calls you to do this, you're running to the property. Like that's a side hustle. That's not a business, you know? And I think that's like the biggest step. And then the second fold to that, to the answer to your question, is when you start implementing systems. You know, I start hiring staff. You know, I start delegating work. And this is not delegating work that you necessarily don't know how to do. It's just delegating work that doesn't necessarily generate any revenue towards the business, right? Like, I'm really good at speaking to guests. I thoroughly enjoy speaking to guests. You know, I love the hospitality aspect of it. But it doesn't pay me speaking to guests I've already booked to pay with me, you know? And I'd rather acquire properties and work with more landlords and manage more properties for other landlords and investors. That's something I'm really good at that no one, or not a lot of people that I can potentially pay to do.
Yep.
So I'd rather pay my staff to speak to guests and to speak to cleaners and etc. So I think that sort of transition from side hustle to business is where a lot of people struggle and sort of really underestimate, like, yeah, I'm just gonna get like 5 properties, 10 properties. I'm gonna make, you know, heck tons of money, you know, but that's not the case. Like, it's just there's this transition of making it into business. But then what you understand, or you end up doing, is you just end up creating a job for yourself.
Yep.
You're not doing 40 hours a week. You're making around the same, if not a bit more than you was in your job.
Exactly.
You have no rest. You don't have any weekends. You can't enjoy time with your family. None of that. Like, I might as well just go back to working at Tesco's.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like, and that's the thing, and that's what people underestimate. Like, you need to go into this thinking like, this is going to be a business for me.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's like, you know, the real things that a lot of people aren't necessarily clocking. You know?
And I think just in life, I think systems are important. Just because, you know, we're talking now in terms of systems. Systems can mean your habits. It can mean anything.
Yes.
But it's really important that you say that, because if you don't have systems in place, it's just, like you said, you're just going to make more work for yourself. What would you say, besides the money aspect of essays or rent to rent, what's the highs of a rent to rent?
I think the highs are they're from the creative aspect, like especially when you're looking from like an unfurnished blank canvas property, and you're going in, or your team are going in to design it and just turn it into a home. Yeah. You know, like our company's mantra, you know, at Brightworks Property, we're all about, you know, sort of creating a home away from home. You know, we have a lot of contractors, corporates who are coming from Scotland, staying in London, or coming from Manchester, staying in London. They're away from the families for like 2, 3, 4 months. Yeah. You know, what type of homely vibe can we sort of incorporate to make sure that they feel comfortable and they feel at ease, you know? So I think that's sort of like the highs that I sort of get in the sense of like, wow, like we went from this to this. So when we have had to do like a slight refurb on a property, change the aesthetics, or just sort of make it a lot more comfortable. I feel like people are just sort of slapping beds, pillows and blankets and just putting on Airbnb. Like, there's a lot more that goes into the process. So I think, like, aside from like obviously like the financial remuneration, that's obviously really good that comes from it. So I think there's that. And also, like, when I sort of zoom out and I look like, wow, I've got like this operation that fully works without me being here. Like, me and you were having this conversation and I'm making money. That's wicked. You know, and my old properties are functioning, properties are being cleaned, guests are checking in, issues are being resolved, and it's all working like clockwork. And it's like, when I zoom out like that, like, I've got a little operation here, and that gives me capacity to do other things. So like, yeah, that's a really good high.
Yeah, that's really good to hear. And that's the goal that I think everyone should aim for, right? Having a solid operation where you can step away from the business and then make you money. Yeah. You mentioned the creative side. Are you the brains behind the interior of the?
Not if I had my way, everything would just be grey and white. No, you always need like a female touch. So when we first started, we had a partner who would support us with like all the interior designing, but now we sort of outsourced that to a sort of like interior designs team, because just me and my business partner earlier, like grey and white, grey and white. Like, it's simple, it's basic, it's cheap. Yeah. Like I say, I splash a colour here and there.
I've noticed that when I do look at someone that's doing a rent to rent and it's an essay, it's always like a dark blue, a yellow. Yes. Is that just come by trend, or?
It's simple. It's easy. It's just sort of like what works. But again, when you look into the psychology of it, like, you need to think about what pops, what's different. You know, because if me and you both have a property in London, both 2-bedroom property, same price, same reviews, like, what else is going to attract my guests? We have the same number of amenities, we see the same number of people. What's going to be different? It's going to be the color. It's going to be the feeling that you propose. Like, I'm reading a book, Diary of a CEO by Stephen Bartlett. Really, really good book, like 33 Laws of Business and Life. And one of the topics is it's called Don't Be Like Wallpaper, or something like that. and it's just basically talks about like habitual citations, and when we see a lot of something, the brain automatically sort of blends it into one thing. So like now I'm a guest, I'm just seeing loads of dark blue properties, loads of grey properties, and like, oh, I just see like a pink bedding. Wow, that sparks interest. So it's all about the feeling that we can convey. You know, what interest, what feeling can we convey our guest to make them to spark interest, to spark an action. The action be to click, to review, to see, to book, to pay.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the whole feeling that we like, you know, when you wear, you know, like a Nike clothing, like how does that make you feel? It makes you feel like an athlete. You know, I don't wear this because it's Nike per se. You know, I wear this because it makes me feel fit. It makes me feel healthy.
Yeah.
And I look feel fit and healthy.
Yeah.
So when we look at brands, we look at consumers, like we spend a lot of money into this insight and looking about, you know, guest behaviors and the psychology behind it. It's like, how do we want our guests to feel? How do guests want to be filled? Never assume.
Yeah.
Never assume. So we speak to our guests. We love feedback. We love criticism. So and that's, I feel like there's a lot that goes into in terms of the booking psychology when it comes to running this business.
Yeah, it's important. It is important. You mentioned, you know, the guests are the most important things to the business, if anything, because if you don't have the guests, the properties aren't getting rented out.
Of course.
For some of there may be not any, but have you had some serious issues with guests?
Of course. Like I don't feel like you've been in this business if you've not had any serious.
Like I think I've had one of my friends in Reading.
Yeah.
I think prostitution was one of them.
Yeah, that's a normal Tuesday. That's a normal. If you don't have a few prozzies every Tuesday, are you really running a service accommodation? You know, that's prozzies, drug abuse, crackheads. That's normal stuff.
Yeah.
Floods.
Okay.
Roofs falling in, caving in, flat above, bathroom caving in. Guests checking into a completely different property where like this an old lady got read 12 and so thought it was 21. Old lady let them in, met them, stayed the night. It's like, you know, I thought I was renting out the entire place, not just a room at this old lady's place. So like, what are you talking about? And then obviously that whole like police being involved, people renting our property and then subleasing it back onto the market.
Really?
And then those people that they subleased it to complain to us saying, oh, you know, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So like, that's just like a few of the things.
And how do you combat those issues?
Again, a lot of those things, like, you know, I didn't do any mentorship, I didn't do any coaching. I learned a lot of the stuff the hard way. So I've always just said there's never been an issue that's happened twice.
Okay.
Full stop. Because, you know, if it happens the second time, third time, I'm now an idiot.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm very keen, again, especially with my project management background, I'm very keen on building processes to prevent this from happening again. So we just take it in our stride. We have systems and processes in place to prevent certain things like parties, fraudulent activities, you know, and et cetera, whether that be security cameras, whether that be the types of questions that we ask the guests, whether that be security deposits, and whether that be sort of like over the phone, you know, when we get a guest that's sort of booking over a Saturday to Sunday, and we can see like it's a large, like, you know, there's like 6 guests or whatever, and we say, you know, just to let you know, we do not tolerate any parties. And then sometimes the guests will say, oh, like, no, we only wanted to have about 15, but like straight away, like, no. Yeah. Straight away, no. Like, we're more than happy for you to have people during the day. We have a no noise policy after 9 p.m. and we don't take any guests past the maximum occupant of people. So if we see that, you know, straight away, and bookings terminated, and, you know, the reservation is cancelled. So my team employ a lot of these systems to try and like reduce some of these issues from happening.
With the partying and stuff like that. Yeah. When you just mentioned the instant termination, would someone then come to the property and kind of not kick them out, I guess? So again, as part of our process, we try to vet this prior. We try to vet this prior. But obviously, like, you know, people lie and etc. Say, oh, you know, it's only 2 of us and you see 10 people. But then straight away, you know, our maintenance team who are on the floor will be the ones to support us. Yeah. And sometimes there are like third-party like security agencies that you can use to obviously escort them out the property. But then the beauty of service accommodation is because everyone's a guest. Yeah. And not a tenant. Yeah. So they have no rights. So there's nothing like serving them notice or giving them Section 21 or anything of that nature. Like, you can literally just, you know, politely scoot them out the property. You know. So it's beneficial for us. Exactly. Yeah. In a good way. In a good way. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, you've got to run a business, right? Of course. And no one's going to tell you how to run your business. And if someone disrespects that, then, you know, they should be penalised for that. 100%. I was going to ask, with your rent-to-rents, do you take any that need refurbishment?
Yes. Often we do. Like it's rare these days anyway. It's often that you get a property that's sort of like ready to go and it's just like beautiful. It's like, below market value and it's just ready because to a landlord, like it's still a potential. Some landlords can still see it as a potential risk. Yeah, obviously there's the guarantees in place, but like it opens your property to potential risk in the sense of damage.
Yeah.
If it's a flat, upsetting other neighbors and et cetera, et cetera. So if a landlord, if a property's up to like high spec standard, like why would a landlord want to give it to you below market value? And there's gonna be a higher wear and tear and et cetera. Like the footprint or the footfall of a lot of people coming in and out of the property, obviously wear and tear the property. So what I often try to find is properties that need a bit of work. They need a bit of TLC, and I'll take advantage of that. And obviously I can get something below market value.
Yeah.
And although it means I might need to put a couple £1,000 to get up to scratch, it means that I'm getting a property in a really, really nice area that has a lot of demand and I'm sprucing it up. And the landlords will tend to appreciate that because I'm adding value to your property. And it shows that I care about your property. And I'm spending a lot of money into an investment or into an asset that I don't even own. It shows that, I'm putting the best foot forward. It shows commitment on my side and I'm a serious individual.
Yeah.
So those are the types of property these days that I tend to go for. Like a lot of these sort of like new builds, modern spec, so if we're talking of a flat, they want like through the roof, rates. So it does not make any money for you. And there's no value that you can necessarily add on top of that as well.
And when it comes to speaking to the landlords,
Yeah.
what's probably the biggest doubt that you get from them?
How are you going to pay my rent? How are you going to guarantee my rent? How are you going to stop parties? And again, it's like that's like the biggest thing. But like you just need to have the confidence in yourself and in your systems, And sometimes like I think like a lot of people who sometimes and I don't like crap on courses or mentorships or whatever. I feel like they're very good. I obviously offer my own mentorship as well on courses or mentorship, sorry, not courses. And I feel like people I've saw like very straight and hard on the script. You need to be very flexible. We're dealing with people. Yeah. Not robots, and sort of people like, oh, I like to rent it on Airbnb and do this and do that, and like it's just too much. Like it's still a very new industry that not a lot of people know about, a lot of landlords know about. So I sort of eased them in, and then I even made like a video on this on my socials. I said, I often ask landlord, what do you want? Do you want more money? Do you want more time? Do you want your property to be looked after?
Yeah.
Cool, I'll tick all three of them boxes. Can we have a deal?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like less is more. Let's not, obviously I'm not saying lie. Yeah. Obviously like be transparent in terms of from a base level of what you're doing. But I've not spoken to my landlords in years.
Yeah.
They even forget they're renting from me. Honestly, like they literally forget they're renting from me. Like a landlord, a property owner, I'm a landlord myself and I buy property to invest in for it to give me income. I don't want the palaver that comes with it. You know what I mean? So I've implored you of giving the property to you so you can guarantee my income. You can maintain my property and you can just do whatever you want with it. Yeah. Within reason, obviously. You know what I mean? So like that's like what landlords want. A lot of people say, no, I'm coming in, I want to do this to property, I want to do that. What do you want? How much rent do you want?
Yeah.
Do you want not to be bothered with this? Do you not want me to be calling you for when there's a leaky tap or there's a light bulb that needs to be replaced? Cool, let's strike a deal. Yeah. I'm your guy.
Yeah.
That's it. So I feel like a lot of people it's a very, very simple business model.
Yeah. And it's also a win-win, right?
Of course.
Because you're going to come to me and if I'm asking for 1.5 and you're saying, okay, cool, I'm going to do some maintenance, I'm going to pay for things, do refurb, and I'm going to get 1.3, no hassle, maybe an odd phone call here and there just to let me know how it goes. Why wouldn't I take that?
100%.
And then obviously with you put it on Airbnb, you make the profit. So everyone wins.
Of course.
As long as the landlord is not losing, then I don't see why. Because a lot of people are a bit arsy about rent to rent.
Yes.
I commented on one of Yusuf's posts, and there's just a trail of haters just back and forth with me, just saying, what were they saying? Oh, you're abusing the landlord, you're taking all their money, It's like, it's because they're ignorant.
Yeah.
They don't understand the strategy.
Yeah.
And it's a shame because it's very unregulated at the moment. And I think it's funny that I'm not doing it, but it's funny that landlords don't know about it and people aren't doing it.
Yes.
Because of how unregulated it is. People think that there's going to become like the Article 4 of SA. Do you think that will eventually come into play?
Some form of regulation, like obviously, especially with the new political, I'm not massively political, but like especially with the new power in place, there will be some form of regulation. Like it's the government,
Yeah.
You know, they want to regulate, they want to tax, they want to, it's basically kind of like, do you remember the whole sort of Uber black taxi situation? It's basically kind of the equivalent. Like, the government wants to sort of tax, they want to stamp down, obviously from a regulation, from safety, I suppose, but like it's all money at the end of the day for what it is. So yes, like there will be some form of regulation, and this is why it's important, like I said at the very beginning, that you think of this as a business and not a side hustle. If I'm selling my spare jeans on Depop, and now the government say, oh, anything, I think there's a new regulation or something that you can't do about, you can't, anything more than in excess of £10,000 now needs to be declared as taxable income. Like when you sell like your secondhand goods, I think it's 10,000 or 5,000. I can't remember what it's per annum, but that's fine. I mean, like that's not gonna massively affect someone that's running it. That's gonna affect someone that's running it as a side hustle. Sorry,
exactly.
But when you're running it as a business, you're prepared for that. I'm anticipating for that, so I'm preparing. Like especially like when like for instance like they implemented like sort of like fire and safety. Because all my properties like we ensure that we're all above board, all above regs when it comes to that. So just sort of making sure like you're being prepared, and you have the processes in place to sort of adapt and be malleable for that. Because like especially like a lot of people, like I know operators are still like working through that went through COVID and survived, because again it was acting like a business, as opposed to like a side hustle.
Exactly.
So I think that's like the most important thing.
And you mentioned you got to pivot. You got to be able to pivot right with the times.
100%.
You can't expect to be in an industry for 10 years and then not be some sort of raw regulation process that you need to adapt to, which I think is very important. Let's move away from property now. One thing I like to do is a bit of accountability. And don't be humble. What is one thing that Freeman is doing really well at the moment? It doesn't necessarily have to be a business. It can be your morning routine. It can be anything. Whatever you choose that you think would be valuable for whoever's listening.
I think one thing I'm doing really, really well right now is my focus. Is my focus and my discipline is on parallel into my previous years or when I was a lot younger. I explicitly know what I'm going to do and I'm going to achieve it, and nothing can stop me. I'm obsessed. Like it's to the point of if I don't achieve what I've said I'm going to achieve, like I will simply perish.
Yeah,
that's like the obsession I have right now. Like I'm not even like hungry. I'm just focused. I know I'm going to be fed. I know I'm going to achieve what I'm going to achieve. So I feel like my focus and my discipline is on power rod right now, and I know what I'm going to achieve. So like in terms of like my routine, my day, my structure, where I want to push my business, the businesses that I want to set up, the collaborations that I want to do, what I'm trying to do with my personal brand. Everything has been thought out. Everything has been set. My goals, the timelines, and the if and buts and ifs that come along with it. So I think that's one thing I'm really owning right now. Especially even like another thing, I'm going on this like health journey right now. I really want to be fit. I'm counting my calories. I'm a big foodie. I love food. I love food. But again, just being cautious of what I put into my body and just being really considerate of that. So like that's one thing like I'm absolutely focused on right now.
I love that because I'm sure you've read Think and Grow Rich, right?
Yep.
Where Napoleon Hill says you've got to have a burning desire. And that's literally what you just explained. That's something that I'm trying to work on because I think it's so important. But we'll get there.
Yeah,
we'll get there.
It's not overnight, and it's not overnight. But I think one thing for me is just having that purpose. And even when it comes to discipline, you can't just be disciplined in one thing.
Yeah,
discipline is a blanket thing, And there's a quote by a guy called Dan Coe, really, really good guy, like a lot of like self-development. And there's a quote, and I'm paraphrasing, and he says, self-discipline is choosing to become the highest version of yourself and outweighing any sort of cheap and petty pleasure. So when you're choosing to become the highest version of yourself, and anything that stops you or belittles you from becoming that is a cheap pleasure. And even like the word cheap is like, you know what I mean? It's like a cheap foundation. That's not strong. That's not robust. That's not thought out. That's not safe. If you, like the same thing like how people think about like cheap airlines, like they're always praying to God that they're gonna arrive safely. So like it's like anything that's cheap, that's like out of goal, that's out of mind, that's out of focus is irrelevant, and that doesn't contribute to you to become your highest version of yourself. So I think that's like that massively helps, you know. And like it's just like small wins as well, like small wins. Like I'm big on like small wins, and that gives you the confidence to then achieve bigger and bigger and bigger things. So I definitely think like it's not overnight.
Yeah.
Don't set yourself like crazy. Like if you're a smoker, for instance, and you say, okay, I'm gonna stop smoking now, like reduce it.
Yeah.
If like for me, like I loved like I could eat out every single day of the week, but I reduced it. Like, you know, I said, okay, cool, I'll eat out 3 times a week, then 2 times, then 1 time, you know, and then slowly like, and then I can still give yourself like those cheat days or equivalent. Like you need to feel human at the end of the day. We're not robots. So I think like definitely like bit by bit and like train your mind to do the things your body doesn't want to do.
Yeah, that 1% better every day.
Exactly,
right?
compound.
Yeah. And then opposite is, what is one thing that Freeman needs to necessarily work on that will excel him to become the best version of himself?
I think still part of me is like very harsh on myself. Some could argue I have like unrealistic expectations, but then sometimes I'd say like it's just unrealistic to those who can't achieve or isn't, you know, achievable for them.
Yeah.
So I feel like I'm quite harsh on myself. So I feel like, you know, spending a bit more time with my family, my loved ones, you know, like my partner and whether that may be, like it's those like very, very like important to me, you know, and a bit more downtime, you know what I mean? So I think that that's something that I perhaps could work on a bit better.
Yeah.
You know, and not being so harsh, not be so serious. Like I don't like my phone doesn't stop.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Imagine.
So, but the things I enjoy it as well. So it's like trying to find that balance.
Yeah. Do you struggle to switch off?
Yes. Yeah. I was like on holiday, like, you know, I went to Ibiza and Turkey like back to back. Couple weeks ago. 60% of them, I was on my laptop. I was on the beach with my laptop.
Yeah.
Like again, like I enjoy it, but like I still need to be able to just kind of like switch off. And the thing is, and it's not because like my business is just like again, it's not like I'm working on my Airbnb. Like that's just running by itself. Sorry.
Yeah.
That's just running by itself. But it's like other endeavors, you know. I sort of need to be able to kind of like switch off, and like I feel like having a new phone would sort of, I've got like 3 phones now. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's like
I think the more phones you get, the worse it gets. Because I've got 2 phones, and I check that phone, and I'm like, oh shit, let me check this phone. Yeah, it's really bad.
Yeah.
But Ezekiel said something quite important. I don't think you can ever, when you've got a business, I don't think you can truly
shut off. Yeah.
Because you've always got a message that you could respond to or something to check. I think you can be 90% switched off, but I don't think you can be 100% switched off.
Yeah, it's a struggle.
Just weary of the time. So one thing I like to do with my guests is I have a set questions that I ask all my guests just to see the perception and just see what everyone else says. So the first one is, if you could have any superpower, what would it be? And how would you use that superpower to impact the world? And try not to make it generic, because a lot of people say like strength, invisibility, and all that stuff.
When you said impact the world, you kind of threw me off. Because I was going to say fly. I've always said I've always wanted to be able to fly, because I just think that's so cool.
Yeah.
I've always said I wanted to fly. But if I was to have one superpower,
it doesn't even have to be something that's like
cartoony.
Yeah,
I think one
anything.
superpower that I could have that would impact the world would potentially be, this might be a bit cheesy, but like imagine if I had like a special touch, right? And if I just could touch you, you could have confidence. And I feel like if a lot more people, a lot more confident, I feel like the world would be in a lot of a better place.
Yes.
I feel like there are people who have phenomenal ideas and are extremely creative, but they lack the confidence in themselves to be able to achieve that. So I reckon as someone that, you know, has the concept of flying cars or curing certain diseases or can build houses more sustainably or can turn, you know, murky water, I think we can partially do that, murky water into clean drinking water. But they don't have the confidence to speak to people, to network with people, to build the drive and the vision. So if I had like a special touch, or if I had like a way of words, or like 3 like words I could say, I could just like, wow,
Yeah, no, that's an amazing superpower, because I feel like we all have infinite potential.
100%.
And I think a lot of people lack tapping in to that potential. One reason being confidence. Which is so important. So that's an amazing superpower. Second one is, what advice would you give to someone starting out?
In property?
Let's say rent to rent.
In rent to rent. One advice I'd give to someone starting out is do your homework.
Mm.
Do your homework. It is not as easy as finding a property, getting some pictures and putting it on Airbnb and just crossing your fingers and hoping for the best.
Yeah.
There's so much more to that. And I don't mean to contradict myself when I say it's a simple business. It is a simple business in the sense of you do find a property, you do put it on the market and you do a list on Airbnb, but there's a lot of finite information that goes into that. You know, so I think do your homework, find someone else that's doing it and learn from them.
Yep.
You know, even like I'm not necessarily saying get a coach or get a mentor, but like even myself, I give like loads of free content and advice and tips. Like there's so much property. Like I don't find like I'm giving myself competition. There's so much property, there's so much business, there's so much people who are wanting to stay. So do your due diligence, do your homework, and don't ever assume anything.
Yeah.
You know?
Because I think that's just like what you mentioned about you find the guest, you find the property, and you put them to. It's kind of the same with deal sourcing. A lot of people glorify it to make it be this really easy find the property, find the investor, put two together. Like you said, in simple terms, that's what it is.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of stuff that goes behind that. And I think that's when people come into it, lack the due diligence, and gives deal sources these bad names, as per any strategy that you go into.
Yeah, of course.
So I think that's really important. Really, really important. Third one, who's had a significant impact in your life and why?
Who's had a significant impact in my life?
Could be anyone.
I feel like a few people, but the one that sort of literally hits home is probably my mother. She is a very, very driven woman. I wasn't born in the country. I was born in Ireland.
Okay.
So yeah, thankfully Irish accent is gone. That's a lot of Hollyoaks and EastEnders that did that. But when I first came to this country, obviously speak English, but like a lot of cultural differences.
Yeah.
And she didn't have a lot of money, and there's a big reasons why I sort of came and I started properties because we were effectively homeless.
Yeah.
Sort of like living in and I don't think I've actually really shared the story, but effectively homeless and just hopping from like auntie to uncles. I wasn't in education. Me and my younger brother, we were in education for about 6 months.
Wow.
So we were just sort of like, she just sort of kept us busy, made it fun. We'd read books, we'd do activities. And she always supported us and sort of made us believe that we could be the highest version. And even when we didn't have money and she didn't have money, she never necessarily made it felt like that. And also as I grew older and I look back, I can see like, we were like extremely poor, and obviously like living in council houses and etc. So she made life as a child very bearable. And because of that, like I work so hard to make sure that my children never have to endure that. And she doesn't have to ever feel like that. So the small wins, like, every single year I take her on holiday.
Wicked.
And, support, like, get her a car or whatever, like it may be, like all the little things that I can do now, I'm happy that I can do that for her. So like I do everything I do for my family.
Amazing.
And for like my unborn family, obviously, and my future family as well. But I think that's like my biggest drive and like, that's where I am to where I am today.
That's amazing, yeah. Really inspirational there. Because your mum's always the backbone, right?
Yeah.
They're always the backbone.
Yeah.
Big up mumsy.
Yeah, mummy's boy.
What's one quote you live by? So when you're feeling down, can't bother to do whatever.
One quote I live by, and one of my friends said this to me, is never compare your step 1 or 2 with someone else's step 100. And it's like it's a quote that's been rephrased and thrown around lungs, but like it's so relevant and it's so practical.
Yeah.
Because I don't know your journey. I don't know what you've had. I don't know if you've been handed something by mum or dad. I don't know if you've had an insurance accident and you won £1 million court claim.
Yeah.
I don't know your story, and equally you don't know mine. And I don't care for our age. I don't care for our backgrounds. I don't care for anything. I'm simply focused on my own journey and my own journey alone, right? And also I seek inspiration from other people to definitely help me focus and drive and see us like a, sort of like a goalpost and a goal that I can achieve. But there's nothing more, nothing else. I'm not going to knock myself down and be necessarily hard on myself because like, flipping out, this guy's like 20 years old and he's got 100 properties. He's making 40 times more money than me. Like, no, I don't know his journey and I don't know his story.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to compare steps.
Yeah, that's so important. As you mentioned, it's rephrased. Comparison is the thief of all joy, right?
Yeah.
And so many people just fall into that trap of seeing someone doing something. Like I said to you at the start about do I really want to be doing rent to rent just
Yeah.
because everyone else is doing it? But
it.
is that where my heart lies?
Mhm.
Just because a lot of people are making money from it.
Yeah, you're right.
So it's important. Don't compare yourself to your chapter 1 to someone's chapter 100.
100%.
Because like you said, you don't know what they've gone through to get it,
Exactly.
which is very important. Last question. Actually, yeah, last question.
Mhm.
Obviously, the podcast is called The Endless Race.
Mhm.
When you hear that phrase, what does that mean to you in terms of life? The endless race.
When I think about that, I think that life is it's a pathway. It's an endless pathway until your last breath, and there will always be doors, hurdles, opportunities, setbacks that will continuously, deter you off your path, push you away, roadblocks and etc. So don't think of like life, even when people quote unquote are like financially free or like they've made it, like there's still other issues, there's still other problems, there's still other opportunities. So I think of that in a sense as like, to consistently stay motivated, to consistently stay hopeful, and to have faith and belief in something, wherever that may be, like faith in yourself. If we're not talking about religion and whatnot, faith in yourself, faith in your family, faith in your loved one, faith in your friends, faith in the people you believe, the people that you work with, the people that you aspire to be, And I think when I think of the endless race, I think like, it's a non-stop journey. And again, a journey doesn't always need to be like tiresome and laborious. It can be enjoyable.
Yeah.
It can be fun. Like think of it like a long road trip cross country or wherever that may be. So it can be fun. It has its ups, it has its downs, but you make of it wherever you want it to be. And that's kind of like my perspective.
Yeah, exactly. And kind of tying that into what we just spoke about in the last question. Don't compare where you are to someone else in your race, because you're all running your own race. But that was a great explanation, by the way. I love that so much. Probably one of the best ones, to be fair. So
We'll clip that.
yeah, it's definitely getting clipped. But Freeman, that's been the end of the episode. Let the people know where they can find you for your extremely valuable advice on rent to rents and on your property journey.
Yeah, of course. Instagram, TikTok, Freeman_Richards. And obviously, if you're looking for property management, hands off, it's BWP Property _UK or Brightworks Property Management.
Wicked. Freeman, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you for having me, bro.
Guys, see you on the next episode. Peace.
Take care.